The Story King presents, My Neighbor is an Alpha Landlord. The scent of wet dog hit me the moment I opened my apartment door, and I didn't own a dog. I stood frozen in the hallway of the Moonridge Apartments, my keys dangling from trembling fingers, as a low, rumbling growl echoed from inside my living room. This was supposed to be my fresh start. New city, new job, new life away from my controlling ex-boyfriend. Instead, I'd apparently moved into a horror movie. Hello, my voice came out as a pathetic squeak. The growling stopped. Silence pressed against my eardrums, somehow worse than the sound that preceded it. I should have run, should have called 911, should have done literally anything except what I did next, which was step inside and close the door behind me. The apartment was dark except for the moonlight streaming through my half-open blinds. I fumbled for the light switch, my heart hammering so hard I could hear blood rushing in my ears. The lights flickered on, revealing nothing. An empty living room. My second-hand couch sat exactly where I'd left it. My unpacked boxes were still stacked against the wall. No intruder, no wild animal, just the lingering scent of something primal and the unmistakable feeling of being watched. "You're losing it, Emma," I muttered, forcing myself to breathe. Stress. It's just stress. A knock on the door made me jump so hard I nearly dropped my phone. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to calm my racing heart, and peered through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway. Not just any man, the kind of man who looked like he'd walked straight out of a cologne commercial. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell just slightly too long and eyes that seemed to glow amber in the fluorescent lighting. He wore a simple black t-shirt that did nothing to hide the muscular build beneath it. I cracked the door open, keeping the chain lock engaged. Yes, his nostrils flared slightly, and those strange amber eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my stomach flip. "I'm Dominic Blackwood. I own the building." His voice was deep, rough around the edges, like whiskey and smoke. "I need to discuss something with you. May I come in? It's 11 o'clock at night." "I'm aware." He didn't look away, didn't blink. "This can't wait." Every instinct I'd honed from years of bad relationships screamed at me not to let this stranger into my apartment. But something else, something I couldn't quite name, made me close the door, unhook the chain, and open it wide. Dominic stepped inside, and immediately the air in the room changed. It felt charged, electric, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. He moved past me with a fluid grace that seemed almost inhuman, his eyes scanning every corner of my apartment with methodical precision. "Did you hear anything unusual tonight?" he asked, still not looking at me. "I heard growling. When I got home." I crossed my arms over my chest, suddenly very aware that I was alone with a man I didn't know. "What's going on?" He turned to face me then, and the expression on his face made my breath catch. It was concern mixed with something fierce and protective. "You need to stay inside tonight. Lock your windows. Don't open the door for anyone except me." "Excuse me, you can't just..." "Emma." The way he said my name, like he'd already memorized every syllable, sent a shiver down my spine. "I know this sounds insane, but there's something you need to understand about this building, about this neighborhood." He moved closer, and I caught that same wild scent from earlier, only now it was mixed with something else. Cedar and night air and something uniquely him. "You're not safe." "Then I'll call the police." "The police can't help you." His jaw clenched, a muscle twitching in his cheek. "Not with this." I should have been terrified. Should have been running for my life. Instead, I found myself staring up at him, at the way the moonlight caught the sharp angles of his face, at the barely contained power in his posture. "What are you?" The question hung in the air between us. Dominic's eyes widened slightly, surprise flickering across his features. Then, slowly, his lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Perceptive," he murmured. "That's going to make this easier. Or much, much harder." Before I could respond, a howl split the night, long, mournful, and far too close. Dominic's entire body went rigid, his head snapping toward the window. In that instant, I saw something flash across his face. Something wild and dangerous. "Stay here," he commanded, already moving toward the door. "Wait," I grabbed his arm without thinking, and the moment my fingers made contact with his skin, electricity jolted through me. His muscles were like iron beneath my touch, and heat radiated from him like a furnace. Dominic looked down at my hand on his arm, then back up at me. His eyes had changed, they were definitely glowing now, amber bleeding into an almost golden hue. "You shouldn't touch me right now. Tell me what's happening." For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then, making what looked like a difficult decision, he placed his hand over mine. His palm was rough, calloused, completely engulfing my fingers. There are things in this world that most people don't believe in. Things that hide in plain sight. His thumb traced a gentle circle on my wrist, a gesture so tender it seemed at odds with the intensity burning in his eyes. "Werewolves are real, Emma. And one just crossed onto my territory." I should have laughed, should have pulled away and called a psychiatric hospital. Instead, I heard myself say, "You're one of them." It wasn't a question. Yes, he didn't flinch from the admission. "I'm the alpha of the Moonridge Pack. This building, this entire neighborhood, it's under my protection. That includes you now." Another hull, closer this time. Dominic cursed under his breath, words in a language I didn't recognize. He gently but firmly removed my hand from his arm. "I have to go. That's a rogue, an outsider challenging my claim. If I don't deal with this now, it'll come here." Yes, something flashed in his expression, approval. "Lock the door behind me. Don't open it until I come back. And if you don't come back." He was already at the door, but he paused, looking back over his shoulder. The intensity in his gaze nearly knocked me backward. "I will. I have something to protect now." Then he was gone, disappearing into the hallway with that same inhuman grace. I stood frozen for several heartbeats before my brain started working again. I rushed to the door, threw the deadbolt, secured the chain, and then did something that surprised even me. I ran to the window. The apartment complex courtyard below was bathed in moonlight. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then a figure emerged from the shadows, a massive wolf with black fur that seemed to absorb the darkness around it. Even from 3 stories up, I could see the power in its movements, the intelligence in its eyes. Dominic. A second wolf appeared from the opposite direction, this one smaller, with mottled gray fur and a limp in its gait. But what it lacked in size, it made up for in aggression. It lunged at Dominic with a snarl I could hear even through the closed window. What followed was brutal and beautiful. The 2 wolves collided in a fury of fangs and claws, moving with a speed that my eyes could barely track. Dominic was clearly the stronger fighter, but the rogue was desperate, unpredictable. They circled each other, struck, separated, and clashed again. I pressed my hands against the glass, my breath fogging the window. "Come on," I whispered. "Come on." The fight seemed to last forever and no time at all. Finally, Dominic got his jaws around the rogue's throat. For a terrible moment, I thought he would kill it. Instead, he held the position until the other wolf went limp in submission, then released it. The rogue scrambled to its feet and disappeared into the night, tail between its legs. Dominic, the black wolf, stood alone in the courtyard, his sides heaving. Then he looked up, directly at my window, and our eyes met across the distance. Even in wolf form, I knew those eyes, knew that gaze. He'd been protecting me. I don't know how long I stood there, staring down at him. Eventually, he turned and vanished into the shadows. I waited by the window, my mind reeling with everything I'd just witnessed, everything I'd just learned. Werewolves were real. My landlord was one of them. And apparently, I'd just become part of his territory. 20 minutes later, a knock on my door made me jump. I checked the peephole. Dominic stood there, back in human form, his t-shirt torn and bloodied but his expression calm. I opened the door. He looked at me with those amber eyes, and I saw something in them that made my heart stutter, relief mixed with something deeper, something possessive and tender all at once. "You're okay. You're bleeding. I heal fast." He took a step closer, and I let him. "Emma, I need you to understand something. What happened tonight, it's going to happen again. Rogues are drawn to new pack members, especially when they're—" He paused, his gaze traveling over my face like he was memorizing every feature. "Especially when they're important to the Alpha. I just moved in yesterday. I'm not important to you. That's where you're wrong." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered against my cheek, gentle despite the violence I just witnessed him capable of. "The moment you stepped onto my territory, you became mine to protect. But it's more than that." His thumb traced my jawline, and I found myself leaning into the touch. "You're my mate, Emma. I've known it since the second I caught your scent." The word hung between us, heavy with implications I couldn't fully grasp. "That's insane." "Yes," he agreed, a hint of a smile playing at his lips. "It is, but that doesn't make it any less true. I should have pushed him away. Should have demanded he leave. Should have packed my bags and found a new apartment in a building that wasn't owned by a werewolf who claimed I was his mate. Instead, I asked, what happens now?" Dominic's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed just slightly too sharp. Now I teach you about my world. Our world, because whether you accept this bond or not, you're part of the pack now. And that means there are things coming for you, dangerous things, that I'll die before I let them touch. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. His hand dropped from my face, but he didn't step back. It's meant to be the truth. You deserve that much. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the predatory grace in his stance, the otherworldly glow in his eyes, the barely leashed power in every line of his body. This man, this Alpha, this werewolf could destroy me in a dozen different ways. But somehow, I knew he wouldn't. "Okay," I heard myself say. "Teach me." Something fierce and triumphant blazed in Dominic's eyes. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear as he whispered, "Mine." The word should have terrified me. Instead, it sent heat flooding through my veins and made something deep inside me purr with satisfaction. What had I gotten myself into? A distant howl echoed through the night, different from before, multiple voices joining in a haunting chorus. Dominic stiffened, his head snapping toward the sound. When he looked back at me, his expression had shifted into something dark and dangerous. "Emma, how do you feel about meeting the pack?" His voice was calm, but I could hear the tension beneath it. "Because they just called an emergency gathering. And it seems word has spread about you faster than I anticipated." He stepped closer, his body angling protectively in front of mine even though we were still inside. "There's a faction that doesn't approve of human mates. And they're demanding to meet you. Tonight." My heart stopped. What happens if they don't approve? Dominic's eyes blazed gold, and when he smiled, it was all predator. "Then we're going to have a very interesting evening." Subscribe to the Story King for more thrilling tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat.